Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I bet you haven't been called ladies and gentlemen too much in your short lives. Well, it's not short for you, it's a long time. Let me introduce myself. Makate Makwanene Ngishnakas. Yeah, that's my name. How come your jaw dropped? Can you say that? Makate Makwanene Ngishnakas. Okay, you can call me Dale or Mr. Dale. Today, I've been asked to come in and share a story with you. It's an Anishinaabe story. I don't have a book. I'm sorry. I know you were thinking there was going to be a book and everybody else brings books. But do you know that before books, people came in and they sat down and they listened to stories? They had to really listen. Are you guys good listeners? I hope so. Well, this story is about two brothers, and there's some girls in it too. And it's an old story, old story. In fact, it's so old, I don't know their names, so I'm going to ask if I can borrow your names. Can I borrow some of your names? Can I borrow your name, Ted?
Yes.
I can borrow Ted's name, yes. Okay, Ted, wonderful. And is there a Sarah? Sarah, hi. Oh, Virginia, you want me to borrow your name? Okay, I'll borrow your name too. I need another boy's name though. Aaron, thank you. Aaron and Ted. Well, this story happened a very long time ago. In fact, there were no telephones when it happened. There wasn't even cars. In fact, the people who came from Europe to this country, they weren't here. The only people here in this whole region were the indigenous people. And lots of different types of indigenous people. And this story comes from the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe means, or has been translated, I guess, as a good-hearted people, like the Deneza who live in this territory. That means kind of the real people. So this story comes from a little bit further east, down around, I don't know if any of you know where the Great Lakes are. I wish I had a map that I could point to the Great Lakes, but around the Great Lakes, vast territory, that's where the Anishinaabe still are today, and that's where this story comes from. Okay, maybe I will begin. Is that okay? Would you like me to begin? Sure. Well, I hope you guys don't mind if I use this drum, because it's helpful in telling this story, especially certain parts of it. So, this story is about two brothers, and these brothers were really good hunters. In fact, when they went out looking for game, because people in their village were hungry and they didn't have anything, sometimes, especially in winter, food got scarce. These two brothers always came back with game, and that's because do you know, any of you have brothers or sisters or uncles or aunts or dads and moms that hunt? Do you know what hunting is? Well, today people go out hunting and they think, I've got a moose. I was really lucky today. There's no such thing as luck when hunting. These two brothers understood it. And a lot of indigenous people, the Deneza, understand it. There's no such thing as luck. Those animals, they come, and if we respect them, if we honor them, they come to us in our dreams. We will have a sleep and we'll be thinking we have to find some food, and those animals will come and they'll show us the place. They will offer themselves to us. But that's only if we have a real good heart. If we are out on the land and we respect the land and we respect those four-legged and we respect all of the animals and all of the plants. And we respect other people too. If we're not good people, if we don't respect others, those animals won't come and offer themselves, and we end up not being very good hunters. That's why there's some good hunters and some, they don't seem to have any luck. These two brothers, they would head out after having dreamt of where they were going to meet that moose. They would head out, and they always went the same way. And no one in the village could really figure out, because they knew that animals changed areas. Sometimes they were over here and sometimes they were over there. They never did ask the brothers, because they knew that to ask wouldn't be right. They just knew that these two brothers always went the same direction. And the reason is these brothers always went to a particular meadow. It was like between some beautiful hills, and there was a stream at the bottom. The sun was always seemed to be shining, always, even in winter. But this wasn't winter, this was a springtime, according to the story. They sat down on the edge of the meadow like they always did, and they offered some stema. Stema is a medicine. Today we know it as tobacco. They were using it as a good way. They took a bit of tobacco and gave it to Mother Earth. And they just sat there, and they didn't say anything. And this valley was always, or this meadow was always filled with herds of deer and wapoos, rabbit, and geese, which were flying north. Lots and lots of great animals, but they never, ever hunted there. This was too special. Somehow they knew this land was too special. They didn't want to take a life in this particular space. No animal had said, I'll meet you there. No, they knew that they were just going to come here, and basically they just sat down there and enjoyed the sunshine and enjoyed the time and just stayed maybe 3 or 4 hours just sitting in quiet solitude. Well, this particular morning, they came to the meadow, and they were sitting, and after about an hour, suddenly a mysterious cloud appeared in the sky. In the sun, it went away, and then they heard a voice or a noise in the sky, and their noise, and they looked up, and this dark gray cloud, it parted, and something they'd never seen before came down. Something they'd never seen before came down. It was huge, it was round, and it landed very gently on the meadow. And legs came out, and it sat. And in the side, they couldn't see any opening, but in the side, a door opened. That door opened, and a beautiful, beautiful girl came out. And she walked down some stairs onto the earth and got down on her hands and knees, and it looked like she was kissing the earth. Have you ever kissed the earth? Have any of you ever eaten earth? Maybe she was trying to taste it, see if this planet has good to taste. But she got up, and the two brothers, one's whose name, I should have said that, one's name was Ted, and one's name was Aaron. Well, Ted looked on, and he looked at this beautiful young girl, and suddenly his heart melted, and oh, he just instantly fell in love. Have you ever seen anybody fall in love in an instant? Oh, he wanted to jump up and run down into that meadow to see the girl, because he was so overcome. He just had no, when people are first in love, they have no thinking. It's like their thinking goes out the window. That's what happened. But Aaron, his brother, grabbed onto Ted and said, no, you'll scare her away. Just hold on, wait. And so Ted sat back down and just watched. And Aaron was aware that something different was happening with his brother. But he kind of said, Ted, just be quiet. Just be quiet. And the girl turned and walked towards a herd of deer. There was a whole herd of deer. They weren't frightened. When that craft first came down, they kind of scattered, but when it had landed, they all came back. And they were just grazing, eating their lunch on the grass. And this girl walked, and as she walked towards them, suddenly she took the shape of a deer. She transformed into a deer and walked into the midst of them. And Ted, he was looking, and suddenly he couldn't see this beautiful girl that his heart just... He said, she's gone. He jumped up and he ran down, and Aaron tried to tackle him, but he couldn't. He ran down and he ran into the midst of this deer, and all the deer scattered, except for one. And this one turned and looked at him and turned back into a girl. And then he realized what he had done. He had interfered with what she was doing, and he started to apologize. And suddenly the girl looked back that way, and they looked, and there that space or that vehicle that had come from the sky, I don't know what it was, maybe it was a spacecraft, it took off and flew away. And then Aaron reached his brother Ted, and he said, look what you've done. You've scared away the craft that brought her here. And they looked at the girl, and she said, my home. They've left me. Oh. And Ted felt really bad. But he said, we will wait. Maybe they'll come back. We'll make a fire, and we'll gather some berries. There's a nice patch of strawberries and blueberries. You have to taste them. They're so good. And there's really neat water, really good water. We'll build a fire and we'll wait. So they sat, they built a fire, and they waited. And they waited. And they waited. And they waited. But her home never came back. And at the end of that time, at the end of that waiting time, no one knows how long it was, they said, your home may not come back anytime soon. We are so sorry. And Aaron says, what do you mean we? It was you, Ted. Ted says, you're right. I'm so sorry that I chased you. But I want you to come, and you can live with us until your home returns. By the way, what is your name? And she said, you can call me Sara. Oh, thank you. When someone shares their name with you, that means so much. That means so much. And Ted fell even more in love with her. But they came back into the village, and on the way back, that moose was waiting for them, right where that moose said, I will be there. I will offer my body to your people. I will become part of you once you eat me, because I know you respect me. So they got their moose, they got their food, and they went back into the village. And as they walked into the village with this young girl, the whole community came around, including a young girl named Virginia. See, I told you I would use your name, Virginia. And Virginia, she kind of had an eye on Aaron. Well, they introduced that young girl, Sara, to all of the village elders first, and then to their mom and dads, and all of their brothers and sisters. You know, they had a lot of brothers and sisters. And everybody else who lived there. There must have been maybe 100 people who lived in that community. Who knows? I don't know. It was quite a few, though. Well, they said, we will build you a special place for you to live. And over the days that followed, they built her a special a special place. Like we would probably call it a hut. Might have been a teepee, I don't know. I'm not sure. This was so long ago, I'm not sure what type of structure. More like a small longhouse, I would think, kind of like they still use today. But nobody really lives in those huts today. They all live in houses with roofs and plumbing and things like toilets and stoves and kitchens. And you guys know what houses are like. That's what people live in generally today. Well, this young girl lived in this hut and became part of the community. She started making friends, especially with Virginia, and she started doing work and collecting berries, and she was wonderful contribution. She brought a lot of gifts to the people, all kinds of different gifts. She was especially good as a singer. Are you good as a singer, Sarah? This Sarah was. She was a really good singer. Well, Ted, he still was in love with this Sarah. And so he courted her. He went and visited her every day and brought her a gift. Like he would make and out of stone, because all the tools were generally out of stone. He would make scrapers, and he would make arrowheads and arrows and bows and all kinds of things. You know, this was so long ago, there may not have even been bows. They might have used atlas. Anyway, don't know really when it was. But he paid so much attention, Sarah began to really appreciate it. And she began to return her love that Sarah was showering her with. And one day the elders came and sat down and said, Ted, Sarah, you two need to be together and start your own family. And Ted just was happy. Oh, they were going to be married. And they were. They had a big celebration. All kinds of food, all kinds of singing and dancing and laughing. And then Ted moved into the home with Sarah. And over the years, they started having children, just like you guys. Yeah, all kinds of children. I don't know if it was 8 or 18. The years went by, and Ted and his brother Aaron, they continued hunting. They continued being very good. And they brought their children, they taught their children all the skills that they needed to survive. It was a happy time. It was like ever since Sarah came, there was no more hunger in the village. There was no more hardship. And that's strange, because there's always a balance, and there's always sometimes sad times as well as good times. But over the years, everybody began to notice something. Arthur grew into first middle-aged man, just like me, and then an old man, just like me, some would say. His hair became gray, and he became one of the elders. And his children, their children, Sarah's children, they grew up. They grew up and they started families of their own. In fact, they began having grandchildren. But Sarah, it's like she didn't age a day. She was still this young girl. She didn't age a day. And time went on, and it became more and more apparent that her youth was something that was a real blessing. But her husband, whom she loved dearly, and she loved all her children dearly, her husband came to her and said, you come from a place in the sky. At this time, by this time, many years ago, she had pointed out as best she could where her family lived, and she pointed to a star in the night sky. And Ted said, I'm getting to be old. I'll soon be going to the spirit world, returning where I started. And you will be still a young girl. I think we need to try again to invite your home, your family back here, your mom and dad. So they went and saw the elders. Well, Aaron was an elder at this time. They went and had a ceremony, and yes, this was what was suggested. So they went out to that they went out to the meadow, which was still a beautiful place. It hadn't changed too much. It was like Sara. It hadn't changed hardly at all. It was still a gorgeous place. In every season, it was beautiful. They went out on a beautiful spring day, just like the day Sara and Ted first met. And Virginia and Aaron, they too had many children. They too were together and they went out, and all of their children, and together as a community, they built out of willows and birch bark a replica of that mothership, that home that Sara had come in. It wasn't metal at all, but they built it as best they could. And then they sat and said, we will invite. We'll sing songs and invite. And so they sat and they sang songs. They sang songs around a fire for 4 days, songs of welcoming, songs to the people who lived in the sky to come back. And after 4 days, in the middle of the afternoon, suddenly they looked up and the clouds suddenly appeared from nowhere, and coming out of the clouds, and Sara looked up and she recognized her home. She recognized, oh, wow, it's Mom and Dad. And that craft landed, and the door opened, and Sara ran right towards it, and her mom and her dad came right out of the ship. They were a lot younger than her husband and her brother-in-law. They looked really young, her mom and dad. And they came, oh, Sara, what happened? We took off, and Sara says, Mom, Dad, how long have you been gone? And they said, well, it was less than an hour. We've been gone just for an hour. And then, time moves differently in this planet. It has been like 30 or 40 years that I've lived here. Let me introduce you to my family. And she brought Ted, and she hugged Ted. And her mom and dad says, they made you marry an old man? And she laughed and she said, Ted was just like me, just a young man when you left here. He has been the love of my life. And let me introduce you to all my children and my grandchildren, because they've all grown up too. And they had a big feast, a welcoming feast. And at the end of the feast, they danced. They invited everybody to dance. Do any of you guys want to dance? I wish you were here, actually, that we could get up and dance. They had a feast. They danced. And at the end of the feast, Ted came and said to Sara, it breaks my heart to say this, but you need to live your life as it was meant to be lived. You need to go back with your mom and dad. And Sara, there was tears in her eyes. She was crying. And she said, yes, I know. I will. But I have loved you, and I have loved all my children, and I will always love you. And I hope I will come back and visit you. And Ted thought, and he said, given the way time moves differently where you're from where I'm from, we may be long gone by then. But maybe we'll come back in another form, as another child. And Sara cried and hugged and kissed her husband and all of her children and all of her grandchildren and even the wee little tiny great-great-great-great-grandchildren. Well, not that great, but great. And went up into the ship with her mom and dad and waved goodbye, and the door closed and the ship lifted and floated, and it floated around that meadow 4 times as a way of saying goodbye, and then it was gone. And that's the story of how the star people came and brought their gifts and visited the people here on Earth, on Mother Earth. So that's the end of the story today. And I thank you for listening. And I look forward to seeing you all back in school real soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And stay healthy and stay safe.